So the accountant thinks Cuckoo might have been killed. I always called Lulu Cuckoo, he added unnecessarily. No, let's go back to the Cuckoo thing because this is clearly fucking important. Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong, and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. This book contains harsh scenes that some people might find upsetting. Viewer discretion is advised. Chapter 28. We jump back to Robin's piano venue. She wanders to a nearby shop in order to give the siblings some privacy. She thinks about her conversation with Lucy, about learning all the stuff about Shrike that she didn't know before, and quite frankly, Lucy has no business telling a near stranger. Yes, Robin does work for Shrike, but Robin began their introduction by insisting that she's only temporary, that she has another job lined up and will be leaving in 2 weeks. Upon returning to the office, Shrike tells the readers, but not Robin, that he found some magenta fur coat that Rochelle had been wearing. It was put up on some nice website the other week and cost £15,000. I hope I don't have to explain to you that the girl who works in a shop shouldn't be able to afford something like that. The entire thing is odd. Robin tells him that she's managed to confirm that Tony had been at the conference. However, I'm not quite convinced that his having been there rules him out. After all, Lula was killed in the early hours of the morning. Surely there weren't any lectures at that hour? Shrike then sits back and fumes over how much he owes Lucy told Robin about his private business. And although I'm not quite sure that I care all that much about Shrike as a person, Lucy is honestly the lowest of the low. I'm in complete agreement with Shrike about the entire thing. The only silver lining is that Robin knows how to read the room. She doesn't say anything further and doesn't ask him any questions. After finishing her lunch, she tells him that John called earlier and gave over Marlene's number, and that John also set up an appointment for Shrike to meet with Sommay. Part 4, Chapter 1, aka Chapter 29. As Shrike gets ready the next morning, he puts on the same suit he'd worn to meet Tansy at the fancy restaurant, but he also thinks about the things he'd seen on Sommay's website. That Sommay advocated the purchase and wear of such items as chaps in degraded leather, the ties of metal mesh, and black brimmed hats that seem to have been made by cutting the tops off of old bowlers. Fashion. Shrike goes to the address John had given him, which is this warehouse, and Sever finally introduces Sommay, who is exactly as you would picture a famous fashion designer in a murder mystery to look like. He acts like it, too. I'll be busy for an hour, Trudy. No calls, Sommay told her. Bring us some tea and Bix, darling. As I walk through the warehouse, I come to a giant poster of the fallen angel photo shoot Lula had done right before her death. However, this photo is clearly one of the outtakes since Lula is laughing and her nip is hanging out. There are a million other photos of Lula all over, too. So the accountant thinks Cuckoo might have been killed. I always called Lula Cuckoo, he added unnecessarily. No, let's go back to the Cuckoo thing because this is clearly fucking important. The second that Sommay sits down, he starts ragging on John, calls him the accountant stingy, and that he was always trying to get money from his sister. He's surprised when Shrike tells him that John paid him double to look into this, and then scoffs over the idea of John throwing around Lula's money. However, a second later he takes it back and says that he's pretty sure John is deeply in the closet and that Allison is his beard. Somebody goes on to say that he hated Lula's family and used to beg her to stop talking with all of them. I can kind of understand Yvette and Tony, but I have yet to see anything bad about John. But that could simply be because the only thing that the book has shown us is a grieving brother. He says that he wishes that he had thought to hire a PI to look into Lula's death, that he's been beside himself with grief since Lula died. He's going to therapy twice a week and wishes that he could drug himself like Lady Barstow, but that Valium stifles his creativity. The secretary comes in with something that might be tea and biscuits if you're unfamiliar with either of these things. Sommay gets into a fight with her over how he's smoking. After she leaves, he explains to Shrike that there was an incident with the fire sprinklers in the building earlier and it made the financial backers not want any smoking in the building anymore. Finally, Sommay demands to know if Shrike is actually going to ask him any questions, so Shrike confirms that Sommay had been in Tokyo the day before Lulu's death. He agrees and complains that he can't sleep on the plane. He got home, took some sleeping pills, and woke up to the news about Lula. He thought that maybe it had been a mistake, that maybe it had been the, and I quote, bag lady Rochelle. Shrike asks if Sommay knew Rochelle, to which he agrees, says that she was clearly in it for the freebies. Of course, Sommay had heard all of the rumors going around about the argument Tansy reported to have overheard. When Shrike asks about Evan, Sommay has nothing good to say about him, and that Evan showed up high as a kite to the funeral, too. Shrike asks if Sommay had ever thought that it was actually a suicide. It requires less than a second of thought. Sommay goes on to say that Evan's alibi of being at his drug dealers in the wolf head mask is hardly proof that he didn't kill Lula. Yeah, but we had a pact, like Marilyn Monroe and Montgomery Clift. We'd sworn that if either of us was seriously thinking of killing themselves, we'd call the other. She would have called me. He goes on to say that Lula called him a few days before her death, but seemed to have forgotten that he was in Tokyo. She left him a voicemail message, which he plays for Strick now. It's short, but Lula basically was super happy over a mysterious something, and that she'd tell him later. And honestly, we were all thinking it. Could Lula have been pregnant? Shrek asked why Somei thought that this might have been the case. There wasn't exactly anything specific, more like a gut feeling he had. Somei was kind of angry over the idea that she might have done something like get herself knocked up, because F her work, I suppose, especially since she'd signed that £5 million contract with him. He goes on to say that it would have been hell to shoot around her pregnancy, and that Lula would have been the kind of working mom who would have dragged her kid to every single shoot, that her relationship with her parents, specifically Yvette, really messed Lula up. And this is the second time that somebody has mentioned that Yvette didn't view her children as tiny humans who would one day be adults, but as playthings. It was kind of hard for me to take Tony's comment about his sister seriously, not when Tony's relationship with his own nephew begins at 9 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. But Sime isn't related to these people, and he has no reason to be salty towards Yvette, not unless Lula gave him a good reason to be. He complains a bit about how little money that the Barristow family had after Alec died, that he had some sort of tech company, but that it was practically belly up thanks to the recession. That Lula was already making so much money by the time that she was 20, it was almost comical. He points to the giant fallen angel promo of Lula and says that it was supposed to have been the start of a new line. He named the bag they were advertising all African stuff in honor of her, that Lula had been on a bender about being African, but he himself wasn't convinced. He tells Strike he's sure Mummy Dearest simply told Lula what she wanted to hear, and when Strike asks, Somei is quick to say that he wanted a way to honor Lula's memory. He doesn't care if people find it tacky. Shrek asks about the freebies he'd both sent Lula and Mac, and Sumi talks about how Lula wasn't half as excited that Mac was going to be her downstairs neighbor as he would have been. That Sumi went out of his way to have Lula walk the one way to one of Mac's songs about her, and let me tell you, the lyrics Sumi gives are dirty. The entire thing pissed Evan off. I wanted Cuckoo to move in with me when she said that she couldn't stand her old place anymore, but she wouldn't. She chose that fucking 5-star prison instead just to get away from the press. They drove her into that place. They bear responsibility. Shrek remembered DB Mac. The motherfucking press chased her out that window. Somebody then dropped something that we haven't heard before. Lula had a stalker. He would constantly put things into her letterbox, and it scared her. She broke up with Evan, found her biomum, and was constantly being hounded by the press. That everything was getting to be too much, so she moved into that building where she thought that she'd be safe with the security. Obviously, Shrek wants to know about the stalker. Somebody says that the man thought that he and Lula were married, that he was eventually arrested and put in custody, that the police investigated following Lula's death, but found that the man was still locked up when it occurred. Shrike asks about the Bugutsis. Same has literally nothing nice to say about Freddy. His opinion of the man is so low that he tells Shrike that he knows somebody who knows a girl who was almost raped by Freddy. That the only reason why there wasn't a big scandal was because Freddy paid her off. She took the money and ran. Following this, Shrike tries to ask about Wilson, but Same said that he and Lula had better things to talk about other than the security guard. However, he knows Kieran, but he has a low opinion of the man thanks to his desire to be in showbiz. Shrike asks about Same's wedding to wear line, that the man seen on the CCTV footage was wearing something with Same's logo on it. The designer insists that he slaps his logo onto literally anything cheap and it sells fast and quickly. That the man might be wearing something off the rack, but so are probably millions of other people. Since we're on the topic of clothing, Shrek asks about the clothes Lula wore the day she died and what she'd been wearing when she fell. Somebody starts to tell Shrek about what she was photographed in at the club, but that's not what Shrek wants to hear. He tells somebody about how Lula had been in something different when she'd hit the ground. Hearing about Lula like that is obviously deeply upsetting to somebody, but then he's immensely surprised to hear about her wardrobe change. However, this was clearly the wrong thing to ask of him, since now Somei is clearly too upset to continue the interview. He agrees to put Shrek in touch with not only Sierra, but also Brawny. After Somei calms down, he tells Shrek that if Lulu changed her clothes, then it's because she was clearly intent on meeting somebody. He says that if Shrek comes to such and such a dress around 5 on Wednesday, he can talk to both models after he's finished with the shoot with them. Before Shrek leaves the office, Somei asks if he's going to talk to Evan. Shrek agrees that he wants to, but he can't get a hold of him. Yet. As Somei shows Shrek to the door, he tells the detective to lose him away so that he can give him a designer jacket. The chapter ends on this note. As the warehouse door swung and closed behind Shrek, he heard somebody call to the tomato-haired girl at the desk. I know what you're thinking, Trudy. You're imagining him taking you roughly from behind, aren't you? Aren't you, darling? Big, rough soldier boy. And Trudy's squeal of shocked laughter. Chapter 30. The chapter opens with Shrek musing about Charlotte. He thinks she's of the opinion that the latest argument, and I quote, had changed her irrevocably, stripped away her love, and purged her of fury, but he knows that this isn't the case. He decides that the best course of action is to completely and utterly ignore her, something that becomes harder late at night. As the weeks progress, he keeps trying to get in touch with Rochelle. However, she's not answering her phone, and what's worse is that she must have tipped off the outpatient clinic, who are now no longer freely believing that anything remotely female is Rochelle. I'm not sure that it's a bad thing for our hospital to be doing this, but I can also understand Shrek's and Robin's frustration about the entire thing. Rochelle's behavior is really suspicious, and it's clear she knows more than what she's letting on. Shrek comes in one morning to find Spanner chatting up Robin. After sending Robin out to get coffee, the two men then they start to bicker over who they think Robin would pick if she were to leave Matthew. Well, not so much bicker as Spanner trying to stake a claim over her and Shrek being kind of awkward about the entire thing. It's gross, let's move on. Spanner tells Shrek the password, which is the African surname of Ajimin, and that Lula had changed it 5 days before her death. He goes on to say that she'd bookmarked his school in Africa, but that there didn't appear to be any sign that she'd applied to it, at least not on that computer. But she had been looking at a lot of books by some African professor. Before he leaves, Spanner gives Shrek a USB stick with some photos that he'd recovered from the hard drive, the kind that had been previously deleted. Shrek and Robin are anxious to see what kind of photos they are, but are kind of disappointed when the first one pops up. It's nothing scandalous. In fact, by Shrek's definition, it's only social snaps. However, Shrek thinks that there must have been a reason why they were deleted from the laptop and asks Robin to go through and identify all of the famous people. That maybe the famous person was the reason for the photos being deleted. Never once did I think that Lula was simply trying to clear up space on her laptop or to get rid of photos she'd already uploaded to the cloud or somewhere. Shrek goes to his office where he fails to get in touch with John. He fails to get in touch with Wardle in regards to the laptop, and although he knows it's futile, he tries to get in touch with Rochelle yet again. Robin comes in to complain about how she still can't get in touch with Mr. B. Shrek randomly changes the topic and asks if it's not odd that she keeps going to interviews but hasn't heard back from any. She says that she was accepted by all of them and she's going to take a new job in 2 weeks. He congratulates her and says that Matthew must be pleased, which takes her back since she's never told him how Matthew felt about Shrek. Wilson then rings and says that Mr. B is out for a few days, so now would be a good time to come check out the building. Shrek agrees that he'll be there in half an hour and then invites Robin to come along with him. Chapter 31. The interior lobby of the building is pretty much what you'd expect from a really expensive flat lobby to look like. Wilson shows them the security cameras and also explains that some of the interior doors have alarms on them. He then shows them the building's gym, the underground car park, and the pool. Again, there's no real surprises with them. Shrek takes a second to ask if the pool door was unlocked, which Wilson agrees, but this isn't lingered over. Back in the lobby, they run into one of the aforementioned Eastern European cleaning ladies. Wilson had warned Shrek off from actually wanting to interview them, claiming that they don't speak great English, but this one knows enough English to ask for the key to the middle unit. I don't see why she couldn't be asked about what happened that night. Wilson then takes him into flat 1, which still belongs to the Bagutzis. As he unlocks the door, he explains that Freddy is in LA for the next 2 days. The interior is pretty much how you'd expect for a rich Hollywood type with no children to decorate. Shrek looks around and pays close attention to the windows since they were remarked upon by Wordle as being pretty soundproof. He also determines where Tansy would need to be in order to see Lula falling past the window and the route Tansy would have taken immediately after. I'm still of the opinion that Tansy did witness Lula falling, even if literally everything else about her story was a lie. As they leave that unit, Wilson explains that he knows the codes for all of the units in the event that they go off. The middle flat is now occupied by a Ukrainian couple. It's an identical layout, but with different decor choices. When they get in, Shrek is interested in the table with the roses on it. The table has been moved, but Wilson explains how the room was set up before. Shrek asks about the panic button in every unit, and Wilson says that they're in the same place in each unit. The maid from earlier, Lukashenka, comes out with some clean laundry. Shrek finally starts trying to talk to her, but her English really isn't that great. It takes her a while to understand what Shrek means when he's talking to her about Lula's death. Lukashenka explains that she was cleaning the stairs when she overheard an argument between Lula and John, that John was angry that Lula kept giving money to Evan. Shrek asks if she saw the guy from the alarm company, and she agrees, but says that she didn't see the man's face. Then she says that she went downstairs to clean Unit 1. Tansy was on the phone and said that she didn't want to lie anymore. A moment after that, Tansy realized that the maid was there and chased her out. Lashinka doesn't know who was on the phone with Tansy, but said that she overheard a woman yelling on the other end. After that, she'd been asked to put some things away in Unit 2 that had arrived from Matt. Then she'd got home. Shrike thanks Lashinka and returns to where Wilson and Robin are waiting. He asks Wilson what the alarm guy looked like. White, really young, with long hair. They go upstairs to Unit 3, which used to belong to Lula. The layout is slightly different than Units 1 and 2, if only because it's at the top of the building. The interior has been redecorated from what they'd imagined it looked like when Lula lived there, if only because they needed to put it on the market. As they look around, Shrike can't help but think about what Lula's final moments might have been like, especially as she'd fallen to the street below. John calls back then, and Shrike explains that his computer guy found a bunch of photos on Lula's computer that had been deleted after her death, which I guess clears up some of my earlier confusion. John tells Shrike that he got the laptop back in February, but Shrike says that the files were removed in March. This is baffling since John doesn't think that anybody remembered the password. Shrike is now of the opinion that Yvette must have left the laptop open and running, and that some nurse of hers copied the photos in order to try and sell them to the press. Since there's no way of knowing if the files are copied, it's a distinct possibility. John says that he'll try to talk to his mom, but that she's really sick and weak. After hanging up, Shrike asks Wilson to walk him through exactly what he did right after Lula fell. Wilson does this and recalls more details as he goes, like how when he got to his knees to look under the bed, there had been a dress he'd knelt on. It's only back in the hall after Wilson said that he'd called the lift that he recalls that he'd slipped on the floor, that there had been water. Not wet footprints, but big old drops of water. He'd forgotten about it until right now. Shrike seems to think that this is a huge clue. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book, Snark's always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more books. Supporters can have access to so many more books starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. Just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys.